these people are going to fuck shit up.
Yeah.
We just need someone to just come in and smash some stuff. And I just want to feel something.
Welcome back to the Northstar Politics Show. Now, guys, look, we're sorry, okay, for taking a week off in what's been the most significant politically in a very long time. But come on now, if you've learned any economics from the Northstar boys, you know that scarcity drives price. And trust me, in 2026, our stocks are going to be booming. A man who also understands this key piece of economic thinking is Trump. And from destabilizing Venezuela to threatening Greenland, his own central bank in Iran, there's only one thing on his mind, and that's money and the New World Order. Today, we also talk about the UAE hating Muslims, Reform Party hypocrites, and why, if you are an ethical person, you should stop using X. So yes, the liberal international order is being undone in front of our eyes, and now the stars may feel misaligned. But remember, amidst the confusion, don't lose sight of the North Star. So sit back, relax, because we're back and raising the levels like never before. Let's get into it.
One time for the one time, two time for the two time. Welcome home, stars. Them.
Cheers!
You are tapped back in, of course, with Northstar Politics,
Come
pushing
on.
political imagination.
Yes, sir.
You're, of course, here with myself, back in person, in the flesh. Noah East, the Mile M, Malcolm X. We didn't land on Bethnal Green. Bethnal Green landed on us. Slimatar Herbertov, live in the flesh.
Come on, bro.
Chris Screwbank Sr.
That's a new one.
We have some parliamentary procedure. And my brother, back from Canada.
Come on, man.
Seeing my family in the flesh again. We're here with Sean Ramiz.
Everyone knows that,
On
man.
each and every platform, the Enfield Eric Williams.
Come on, man.
The Trini Trotsky.
That's a new one.
So they say you tap back in with your Trini family in the Toronto, so that's what we're calling it.
So
DreamWorks Moses.
Let my people go, Pharaoh. Let them go, no, man.
Biblical Jesus, but you knew that already. How you doing, my brother?
Bro, I'm so gassed to be back, live in the flesh.
Come on.
Breathing in the murky East London air.
We were away last week. We missed the episode for the first week. But lucky nothing happened. Lucky nothing happened in politics while we were away.
We were so just committed to being so consistent in perpetuity until we thought, you know what, just one little week, one little week off. And then the world decides just to go on fire.
But you know what it is, Trump clocked. So if I do the mad thing while Northstar are away, no one's going to know what I got up to. We see what you're up to, Donald. We see what you're up to. But we're here to break it down. This is a jam-packed episode we have in store this week. We got so much to get into. But before that, it's like, what have you been up to? Little catch-up sesh.
Yeah, I mean, do you know what it is? When you come back from being away for so long, trying to get into a routine is actually so tough. And we were actually talking just off camera as well about that old school wisdom of just your aunties, your grandparents saying you know what, you got to do the little things. You got to make up your bed in the morning, make sure you just fold up your clothes properly.
It's
good.
All
of that habit building, I feel honestly, because when I was in Canada, obviously the aunties them are forcing me just to do the right thing.
They do all the proper things,
You know what I'm saying? And it actually kept me in a routine there. Now I'm back here though.
You got to kind of manage it yourself.
Definitely.
It's real. And even on that, bro, you know this, but me, every morning now, I got my routine where I live in Stockwell, very Portuguese area. I go to my Portuguese cafe across the road, journal, read, before I even turn my phone on. Yeah. And I'm clocking out as with everything, the elders were right. Yeah. You just got to have them nice little routines that you have for yourself.
And just saying, if you catch him on a morning, don't go up to him. I beg.
If you see him in the morning, it's I need to get through this first before we just enter the day. But honestly, stars, then we're glad to be back. As much as you're home, we're home as well. We missed you.
And listen, just comment, share, subscribe, everything.
We need it.
Because this year, our ambitions... Bro, listen, if you thought last year was good, this year, we got something in store for you.
We got craziness in store for you. Speaking of... We need your help.
Please.
Stars, then we need your help. Obviously, Northstar is fully self-funded. You can't imagine how ground works it is. We record after hours in a charity cafe in Boat E3. You hear the police going by the window. You see what the man never put it up with. We need your help. If you head to northstarpolitics.com/support, you will see the opportunity to support the man them. Send a little £5, £10, £20, whatever option suits you. We don't want to be having crazy advertisers on here. We don't want to be having Palantir on here.
So, but speaking of though, if there's a local business and
if there's good people that want to sponsor,
exactly, a local community thing. Look, we got a whole bookshelf behind Noah.
Exactly, that's all right.
We can put your book up.
But we want to be people powered.
100%.
So if you've enjoyed the show and you think it's something worth of value, if it's worth anything to you, then just send a little £5 a month.
Because you know what I hate? I just hate the concept of paywalls.
Yeah, we don't want to privatize stuff.
I don't want to do that, man.
Yeah, but obviously we need to be sufficient at some point, and we've got big plans for expansion and trying different things, live shows, all of that. So much to come.
Inshallah.
So please, if you find it in your heart, support the boys.
Please.
Speaking of, what's our ambitions for the year? We ain't got to be too specific. No spoilers. What are we looking to do this year?
Well, you know what? I think we want to lay the groundwork to actually bring more people onto the mission as well. Like, this is not just meant to be a little podcast, a little ego fest where we stroke each other's egos. Like, nah, like the whole point of having co-hosts, the whole point of reaching out to people is because we want this to be a community-led platform. So we got ambitions for people to write for us. We got ambitions for people to come on the show with us. And we got other ambitions for other types of shows, and even taking this offline into real life.
In person, in a real life.
So
pretty on the gram and you're pretty in a real life. So definitely, we've got a lot of things we want to try and do, and hopefully they'll materialize over the course of the year.
Yeah.
Inshallah, as they say.
Yeah.
And speaking of writing, we actually, while we were away, we published a little essay on our Substack called The Soundtrack to Collapse, where we look at the stewards of the status quo and how they're guiding us to our demise.
Definitely.
And it's incredibly timely considering all of the platitudes we've heard from our leaders of the world as Trump goes out on his imperial conquest. So I think that's an important one to tap into. I think Northstar Politics on Substack.
Yeah, for sure. And actually, it's been so nice to hear from a particular type of viewer, or part of the stars, should I say.
Yeah.
It's actually it's year 13s. And people in sixth form.
Yeah, I saw that.
Because we actually get because people do message us, but it's actually really kind of indicating to see that actually kids in their A levels, they're trying to just get, maybe do a bit of politics revision and stuff. Shout out to Nada's brother.
Oh, Hadi.
Hadi, yeah, exactly.
He was watching Northstar Politics in school today. You need to focus on them books. But you know what I mean? We appreciate the views.
Of course. And that's just the type of things we want to do. We want to, we were very privileged to have some sort of elitist education or whatever. And we want to make sure that actually the fruits of that can actually be extended to more people. Yeah,
and also, maybe there's me being overly cynical.
Yeah.
But yeah, cool. We learned a few things in Oxford. But a lot of my learning was pre and post and outside.
Yeah, definitely.
So we're able to communicate the fact that you can learn so much, you can understand so much about the world and develop your thinking without necessarily having these rigid academic boundaries. That's so important to us.
I feel like even post-university, I had to do a lot of unlearning. Of
of course, with the reversion to Islam.
Yeah, exactly.
Naturally. Should we get into it today?
Let's do it, bro.
It's going to be a pure state of play episode because the state of play right now is crazy, as you can imagine.
But this is what Northstar came to solve.
Let's get into it. Okay, welcome to the State of Play. For the first-time listeners or people that are just returning after a little hiatus, this is where we get into the really headline topics. And today it's pure headline topics.
Pure headline.
And we just want to start with the most important things going on right now. And as some of you may have seen, the government has started to enforce a waiting period after driving theory tests. People would have their practical... No. We're not starting there. We're not starting there. Of course, the big story of the past 2 weeks has been the US attacks and intervention in Venezuela. As many of you will know, but we'll recap for those that don't know. In the first few weeks, or the first week of January 2026, the United States launched a military operation against Venezuela that included airstrikes and strikes on Caracas and the capture of the Venezuelan president Nicolas Maduro and his wife by US forces. Trump administration officials described the mission as a special operation and have suggested a transition period during which the US would temporarily run Venezuela and restart its oil industry. So you would have seen the images of Nicolas Maduro literally being perp walked through New York City.
Dripped out in a tech fleece.
But also dripped out in the maddest bracelets I've seen in a while. Some heavy chains on him.
Yeah, it's crazy.
His wife being shoved around in the back of police vans, and Trump quite brazenly saying that Marco Rubio and different officials within his government will be running Venezuela in the interim period. Trump has tied the action quite explicitly to the combating of alleged drug trafficking and has repeatedly emphasized Venezuela's oil, which is very heavy crude oil, inviting US oil companies to invest and secure the industry. In speeches and interviews since, he's framed the intervention as necessary for US interests and has been quite braggadocious about the fact that we're going to get all the oil out the ground.
Yeah.
And the interim president of Venezuela has been offering up these oil to the US to sell on after that for market prices. The strikes and capture of Maduro have sparked broad condemnation internationally, including from European governments and Latin American neighbors, as a violation of Venezuelan sovereignty. Some US political figures and analysts warn the intervention resembles past interventions and could destabilize the region. Further from this, Trump has then gone on to renew a controversial push to acquire Greenland in a similar vein, saying that it's necessary for the strategic security of the US, especially against Russia and China. He's pledged that the US will pursue Greenland whether they like it or not, and has been touting around military intervention or a purchase of the land from Denmark. He's also described Greenland as psychologically important and stated he does not feel constrained by international law, but rather by his own morality. Obviously, the reaction from this in Europe has been even more so. Denmark and Greenland firmly reject any takeover, stating Greenland is not for sale. Danish leaders warn that any US attempts to seize the territory would undermine NATO solidarity. It could constitute an attack on an ally. So what we've got there is initially the first expansion and seizure of the Venezuelan president, pretty much unabashedly because of oil.
Yeah.
And then Trump now getting his eyes on Greenland in the near future. We predicted this.
Well, I mean, the posturing that he's been doing in the Caribbean for a while, it just pointed to one direction. I think the unabashed behaviour, as you kind of pointed out as well, is incredible, because even, you know, he's wanted to make Canada as well the 51st state. Well, yeah. So, like, you know, even when I was in Canada, Canadians themselves, right, you know, you're just walking around, that's like the talk of the town. People just like absolutely hate what's going on in that side of the world. And really what this is all pointing to is really the end of what this kind of fragile international liberal order, and really the resurgence of the realpolitik.
Could you frame that? Because I'm sure loads of people on the airwaves, while they've, you know, haven't had Northstar Politics listen to, have heard loads of these political commentators say, oh, there's a violation of the rules-based order. Yeah. What do they mean by that?
So look, since 1945, I think the Western world, Europe, was obviously in shatters, and so US basically stepped in to help rebuild rebuild Europe and the countries there. And basically underpinning this was this ideological commitment to an international rule-based order, which basically says that they're going to uphold liberal norms, the respecting each other's sovereignty, global trade. And from that, what you see over time is the birth of, you know, capitalism as we know it, neoliberal orders, etc., the sort of birth of globalization and trade amongst these countries. And ultimately, the reason why I suppose people are so shocked about what's happened is because they never expected that such a equilibrium could actually become unstable. When the reality is, if you kind of understand human nature, if you really understand how people are, it's always been a fragile equilibrium. The fact that, like, peace, right, as we know it, has just been stabilized by the assumption that people won't go to war with each other because profit and sort of corporate interests are the only thing keeping these countries together. Yeah. And so, and I'll let you come in, but just over time, what you started to see then is a increasing reliance on America, because of how, again, those neoliberal interests were born out of this supposed, what we call fragile liberal international order.
Yeah, and I mean, for me, it's very fascinating to see the theory crumble in real time.
Yeah.
Because as you say, globalization was kind of like the logic underpinning it. But even more formally, when we talk about a liberal institutional or a rules-based order in the international sphere, they're seeing institutions like the UN or NATO as having sort of external force to be able to exert it on these sovereign states, such that these international bodies or these coalitions of the EU could constrain any EU member state. Mm-hmm. But all the time, you'd have what would the international relations theory world be called realists. Yeah. You think that really all that's motivating state dynamics is real power, is real force. And what they would say is, at the point in time when we lived in maybe a Pax Americana, where we had this unipolar world where the UN seemed like this really powerful thing and NATO seemed like this really powerful thing.
Alleged shared cultural values.
Precisely. Yeah. All that was really underpinning that for the cynics among us was this US real power. And what we're seeing now is, as those interests become misaligned, any presupposition that there is this liberal world order is just falling apart.
Definitely.
It only mattered as far as it mattered. And as soon as the US decides it doesn't matter, it doesn't matter.
But that's the absurdity of it all, because within the literature, as people, like, you know, if you like kind of delve into kind of international relations, political theory, it shifts over time. The dominant view in the 90s was that we reached the end of history. That this was it. Yeah, Fukuyama, right? And that actually, like, so the kind of modern, multicultural, secular world order, this is really what it is, right? It's the capitalist realist philosophy by Mark Fisher. Like, you can't imagine anything beyond it. But actually, all it took was literally one guy and his own sort of self-interest and ego and admiration of the other, right? Because obviously Trump loves dictators, to see it just all unravel in real time. But can I ask you, what do you think the critical juncture was for all of this? Because there's a bit of a debate around that. Like, at what point did all of this start to kind of peel away?
So I would say there's a transition from maybe, let's say, the 2000s into the late 2010s, where in the 2000s, and if we just take like the twin cases of, let's say, Iraq and Venezuela as like US interventions, when it comes to Iraq, that was a time where the US benefited from its own self-created constraints. So this idea that George Bush had to go to Congress, this idea that there needed to be these trumped up ideas of weapons of mass destruction, as far as that constrained the US, that constraint itself served a wider structure to end up constraining other countries around the world. So the idea that an Iran at the time might be able to develop weapons of mass destruction was legitimate enough for the UN to intervene. The idea that the DPRK or North Korea at the time might have these weapons of mass destruction allowed the US to fulfill their purpose. At this point now, where we have states like Israel who have set up weapons of mass destruction, nuclear weapons, totally against the nuclear non-proliferation treaties, or even Pakistan and states like this, it now no longer serves the US's interest to buy into those self-created structures. Therefore, they subvert them.
Yeah,
it's very simple rationale, very simple game theory, very simple strategy here. Where at the point where that wider structure no longer serves US interests, they'll subvert that.
And also, I think one of the fascinating things to see is the scramble of Europe's reaction after this, because honestly, I don't think Europe or any other country can do anything, because over time, post the kind of neoliberal world order of like the 80s and onwards, they've sort of ceded a lot of any like meaningful leverage or sovereignty to the US, not just militarily, but actually through the fact that many of the businesses, the payments infrastructure, the internet itself are all owned by companies. There's Trident as well. Is all owned by countries based in the US.
And that maybe
companies based in the US.
Even if I can build back on that, my point is like, over the past sort of 40 years, it has served the US to kind of breadcrumb Western Europe and Western allies into being overly reliant on them under this illusion that we will be constrained forevermore by these ideals we've set up, such that don't worry about the fact that in a material level you are totally reliant on us, because we will never deviate from these norms we've set up. But
it's not a credible commitment.
It's not a credible commitment. And there's not been that sort of sobering reality that we have no way to constrain you if you do deviate until now, where Europe is starting to realize, clearly, maybe even getting some conspiratorial stuff here. If there's been an agreement between the US, Russia, and China that the US will intervene in Venezuela for their own interests and no one will intervene on Venezuela's behalf, then now what happened? And it kind of coincides with the US basically putting forward a totally pro-Russia settlement treaty in Ukraine that hasn't been agreed upon yet, but that's what Trump's pushing for. And it's like, is the US just going to sell us down the river for their own personal interest? And if so, do we have any power to stop that? Well, no, because the EU has drastically unarmed itself and drastically technologically become reliant on America.
No, precisely. And as we start to sort of move out of the kind of tradition, well, it's not really traditional, but that kind of like modernist world order, what we're going to see is like the reassertion of a multipolar world, really. So on the Western Hemisphere, you have the US. All the way on the Eastern Hemisphere, you have China, and somewhere in the middle, you have a mix of Russia, and there's still now more of a scramble around the Arab world, etc.
And it makes a lot of sense now when you think about the policies of the modern United States and why they have been so pro-separatist movements around Europe. So if you think about Viktor Orban in Hungary, or we think about the Reform Party in the UK and the sort of promotion of Brexit by a lot of US actors, well, clearly they want to undermine the sovereignty and solidarity of the EU as a fixed trading and political interaction bloc. Because a united EU has the ability to resist and reject US impositions, but a divided EU, by all of these Brexit, Hungary leaving, all these sorts of things, doesn't at all.
And you know what's funny about all of this is that China's kind of probably looking at this, laughing at it all, because they're the ones who really protected themselves, right, by actually investing in their own companies, investing in their own country, so that they're not just relying on the rest of the world by being just running crazy deficits like the rest of Europe. So I guess only time will tell.
And what do you think about this whole sphere of influence argument? Because the Greenland one is kind of interesting.
Unpack it a bit then.
As in, so obviously Greenland was essentially taken by Denmark, and the native people there were not treated particularly fairly by the Danish kingdom at the time. And over the past 100 years, it developed into more of an equitable relationship, such that the natives of Denmark no longer see themselves as sort of oppressed, and actually we want to remain a part of the Kingdom of Denmark. But the argument I'm more making on a natural level, when we think about spheres of influence, so people will probably remember from their history textbooks the idea that the satellite states around the USSR during the Cold War were sort of respected as within the sphere of influence of the USSR. Similarly, the US is looking for the whole of the Americas as their sphere of influence to sort of solidify themselves and see themselves as someone who has the capacity, the material capacity to do this. So thinks, why don't we just respect the fact that we want to do this, we can do this, just allow us to do it peacefully.
I think the sort of motivation behind Trump is actually quite simple, and it's the fact that his ego is probably driving most of this, and that kind of like hubris that they have as a collective America just makes it a natural consequence that they're going for that. I think on Greenland itself, it is quite interesting because there really is argument to be made that the people in Greenland will be better off if they're part of the US, just by virtue of the fact that Europe as a sort of institution is crumbling, and that's again because of the reasons we outlined before. So again, we just have to continue to watch it.
No, and with a lot of these things, it's been a crazy start to the year. A lot of these are developing situations, and another event that's happened, not over the weekend. It's obviously been boiling under the surface for decades, but has really come to the forefront of mainstream media attention, is the situation in Iran. So Iran's economy has gone into freefall. You might have seen the stuff online where Iran's rial is literally equivalent to an infinite amount of euros because their exchange rate has fallen to zero. So it's plunged 1.48 million to the dollar, triggering protests by merchants in Tehran's central bazaar who said they could no longer conduct business. Ordinary Iranians watching their purchasing power evaporate by the hour soon joined them. Within a week, demonstrations had spread to all 31 provinces. So as the protests grew, demand shifted from economic relief to calls for the overthrow of the Islamic Republic. Iran's theocratic regime, which has been in power since 1979 and currently led by Ayatollah Khamenei, is deeply unpopular among much of the country's population of roughly 90 million. Analysts point to years of mismanagement and corruption, but say the economic collapse accelerated sharply after the United Nations reimposed sanctions in September over Iran's pursuit of nuclear weapons. Here's the classic Israeli line that Iran is always a week away from developing nuclear weapons. US President Donald Trump has urged anti-Iranian or Iranian anti-government protesters to keep protesting, saying, quote, help is on the way. An Iranian official told news agency Reuters that the death toll could be around 2,000 people, including security personnel. And currently, one protester, Irfan Soltani, will reportedly be executed tomorrow, with the human rights group saying they have never witnessed a case move so quickly. This is such a complicated topic that
very complex,
and it's been so simplified, worryingly simplified in the past sort of 4 days, which just frightens me as to what kind of regime intervention could be on the cards.
Yeah, I mean, it's scary because, I mean, look, the reason why the Iranians are in this position in the first place is because of Western imposed sanctions. So then, because they've been so immiserated, they therefore go protest.
Unpack that a bit more.
What do you mean?
As in, so we're actually talking about this off camera before the episode. Unpack exactly where the Western imposed sanctions come from, who they actually impact, and how that is kind of counterproductive to what they purportedly do. Yeah,
so like the Western imposed sanctions are basically disproportionately impacting the actual people of Iran. It's not the elites, right? It's the average business owners, the small businesses, the people who rely on exports and imports. It's just making their lives so expensive. And this kind of saga over the last decades have been just basically on and off, ping pong, etc. And so now that you're getting to a point where people's lives in Iran it's not good, hence why they actually are protesting. And then now you also have a regime which, again, is not good because they're cracking down on it, killing a mass amount of people. And so the reason why I guess we're both worried is because then you probably just scroll on social media and see people just like falling into binary sides. But then there's also the extra element where it's the likes of Trump, Tommy Robinson, Nigel Farage, who are just out on the streets. Well, obviously not Trump, but absolutely trying to support basically purport they are supporting the Iranian people when really they have very sinister motives beneath it.
No, I agree. And even it's important what you say there, because the actual dynamics of how Iran's got into this crazy state is not just down to the current top brass in the Iranian government.
Yeah.
Like you say, one, the sanctions impact people obviously directly. So let's say there's a disagreement between the US top brass, or I don't want to call them top brass, let's say that more formal, like the US government and the Iranian government. Such an East End thing to say. The US government and the Iranian government, and the US government to sort of try and leverage their power over the Iranian government through the UN, through their impact on the UN, demand sanctions on the Iranian economy.
Yeah.
This doesn't actually impact on a material level the Iranian government. They're not missing meals. Let's put it that way. But, working class people and merchants and even middle class professionals, whatever, they're going to be impacted by this in the sense of they will end up being pushed towards starvation because of these sanctions. Therefore, the Iranian government, one, will be pressured by their own citizens who are starving, essentially, but also they will be pushed to practice extreme economic measures such as hyperinflating their economy, printing more rials to try and pay for things, eventuating in this hyperinflation we're seeing now. The point I want to make more broadly, and the thing that kind of scared me about this narrative, is, again, essay I wrote not recently, but Israel must make the desert bloom.
Yeah.
And in that, what I talk about is how a big part of the Zionist apartheid state project is the fundamental Western liberal thinking about what legitimates ownership of your sovereignty. So what legitimates ownership in an individual sense, but what also legitimates ownership in terms of a sovereign state. And a lot of it, to paraphrase, comes down to a sort of a Western recognized right way of conducting civil society.
Yeah.
Okay. And this kind of Trojan horsed in to our understanding of ownership, such that if we can adjudge you as not managing your state, your nation, your plot of land correctly, that is legitimate grounds for it to be expropriated from you. It's not being managed correctly. It's not being stewarded correctly in the same way that the First Nation people of the Americas were not managing the land in a way that we saw as effective. We could expropriate from them. So when you see these narratives, all of a sudden, all these right-wing shock jocks online care about women in the Middle East.
Yeah, all of a sudden.
All of a sudden, when it was the massacres on people in Gaza and Palestine and Kuwait in the 90s, wherever it might have been, not a word.
It's radio silence because it doesn't fit into their calculus, their self-interested calculus of what they're actually here to do.
Precisely. But now when it is being able to be leveraged as a way of legitimating regime change or an expropriation of land from a native people, now it's like, let's set that groundwork in a way as a sort of what's the right word, a landing pad for us to just come in smoothly.
And also, like, people aren't really, and when you get caught up in like the kind of the kind of news cycle and these news headlines, people aren't really going to think about, so what's going to happen after? Like, who are they actually going to, like, you know, if they do assassinate the leader of Iran, then who's actually going to take his place? Because obviously there's this guy, I forgot his name, Rahal or something, you know, the kind of Western Iranian guy, I forgot his name. But he's sitting there on the sidelines and he's been sort of outside of Iran for a very long time, trying to position himself as basically just a puppet for the US and Israel to kind of put him in to replace the current leadership. But ultimately, he's also domestically hated. So it's actually like, in these conversations, when does the autonomy and self-determination of the actual Iranian people come up? Because, as you say, Israel must make the desert bloom. They're telling them this is good for you. This is what must happen. It doesn't always square out like that.
It becomes difficult though because, and I think this is where people are maybe, if we speak crudely, on the left, it becomes a bit ambivalent or complex. It's like the Iranian people are suffering under this like authoritarian theocracy.
Yeah, definitely.
But then at the same time, I don't want the US to intervene and overthrow the Ayatollah because of that, if you know what I mean. It becomes kind of a weird how to square that circle off. I do feel like it's weird. It's like, I feel that there should be a regime change.
Yeah.
But I don't think someone externally should change the regime.
Well, yeah. I mean,
do you know what I mean?
But that's the complexity of it. And I think like seeing how they treat people first and foremost is basically how you judge a regime, right? I don't think there should be a regime change inherently just because it's an authoritarian regime. I don't think there's no grounds for that. Like, I think just because it's not a democracy doesn't mean it's inherently bad. But the fact that we've seen, like, put it this way, I want there to be a stop to like the killings of innocent people in protests. Being born here, I kind of believe in the inherent right to protest. And so that's when these kind of like difficult complexities come up. But ultimately, who is the US, who is Israel to be going into a country to destabilize them in this way? And their track record shows they don't really have the best interest at heart of these people. Yeah,
and if you think about some of the core tenets of the UN, is this idea of like the universal individual.
Yeah.
So there's the primacy of the individual on the global stage means that there's certain ways that humans can be treated which would necessitate an impingement on sovereignty no matter what. And in theory, this makes a lot of sense. But when you feel like some of these principles are laden with a certain ideology, it becomes hard to kind of stomach them. So it's like, I don't know if, and I'm not advocating this type, I don't know if like the resolution is sort of, if we are respecting a country's sovereignty, there needs to be an internal revolution.
Who knows?
And we kind of from the sidelines say, you know, I hope stuff changes in Iran, which I do. But then as much as that is, I don't know if I particularly want a US-backed change of regime.
But also, like, I will question, and again, because we're not experts on this, but I will question, like, to what extent is the information that we're getting out of Iran, not just, I don't mean just now, but like the information we learn about Iran, filtered.
Of course.
Right? Like, how much clarity do we really get over the nature of Iran? Because I've actually spoken to some Iranians who say, like, they're actually fine with the current regime. I've also spoken to some who actually, like, had to flee, right? So we have to actually be quite critical when we're just assessing all of this and not basically fall into that, this is good, this is bad.
No, I agree. We're going to keep going. We've got to keep going. A lot of stuff going on.
We do. What's next?
I had a heart attack the other day. Not literally.
Okay.
But I saw the chairman of the Federal Reserve in America looking like he was in a hostage video. I liquidated my whole ISA stocks and shares.
You shouldn't have done that, though.
Liquidation, everything.
I'll tell you why I should have done that.
No, why not?
Because Trump wants the stocks to do well. I'm saying.
Nah, but brother is like, but do I trust Trump to be able to, bro? When I saw the look in Jerome Powell's eyes, I said, yeah, you know what, yeah, buy gold.
Explain to the stars then what is going on.
Okay, stars them, listen closely. If you even got £5 to your name, put that under the mattress.
Or actually put it into Northstar
Yeah,
politics.com /support.
So Jerome Powell is chairman of the Federal Reserve. For shorthand, we can think of the Federal Reserve as like the US version of the Bank of England. I don't want to say Bank of America, it's a private bank.
Yeah.
But they essentially are in charge of the interest rates in the US and manage the overall federal, the reserve of stock currency. Really important, obviously, globally, because the US is a base currency for global exchange. Now, Jerome Powell is chairman of the Fed, actually appointed by Donald Trump in his first term. It emerged on Sunday night that the White House was threatening to indict Jerome Powell over comments he made to Congress in relation to renovation costs overruns at the Federal Reserve buildings in Washington, D.C. He then put out a video describing the legally binding request for information as a consequence of not following the preferences of the president through the U.S. Attorney for Washington, an ally of President Trump, and said that the subpoenas were a result of Federal Reserve failure to respond to requests for information. Following this, the dollar fell widely and was down 0.25% against the pound. Come on, Britain. While US stock markets opened lower on Monday, the price of safe haven gold also hit a new record high. To explain what that really means, okay, cool. So there's meant to be, and this is kind of an advent of like fiat currency in like the late 80s, 90s, whatever, this idea of central bank independence. Because what economists and we'll call neoclassical economists basically realized is if we have the government in charge of the currency totally, then they're just going to try and, let's say, devalue the currency as much as possible to just get sales rising and pump it up, inflate the economy and try and get in for 5 years down the line.
Yeah, because the economy feels good to people.
The economy will feel
people
good.
Feel richer.
But in long-term thinking, that's just not sustainable. You end up in situations of hyperinflation, et cetera, et cetera. Also, what they're going to want is just low interest rates. So people can borrow money, buy houses, everything's lit, everything's grand. Obviously, the man them here don't deal with riba, they deal with interest. But you get the point. So what Jerome Powell's stating here is that Donald Trump is essentially using the legislature of the United States government to pressure him for not appeasing his demands for interest rates to be lowered, when actually the role of the Federal Reserve is to independently decide what is best for the long-term future of the US currency. Obviously, we studied economics at uni. I was shocked when I saw this.
Yeah, I know, because it's a topic that comes up, but you don't really expect it to happen in real life.
They bring it up as a thing of like, this is like the apocalyptic scenario that we just avoid at all costs.
So, I mean, look, this is, again, case in point, Trump does not respect democracy. If you still believe that, like, just stop believing it, because obviously at the end of the day, Trump admires these dictators and is just pulling things out straight from their playbook. I think it's quite interesting because actually central bank independence in the UK is also controversial for the other side because it's actually an unelected bureaucrat who's actually deciding what the interest rate is that also doesn't necessarily benefit real people. So it's not even like what we're arguing for now when we're discussing this is to say that, oh, there shouldn't be any sort of influence of politics on the central bank, but like literally threatening the head of the Federal Reserve is something so unprecedented that it's something that you'd see in a movie. It's mad.
As in, for people to understand Trump, we said it when we talked about Venezuela and Greenland, over and over again, you need to understand the theory of political realism.
Yeah.
As in, he is not buying into any sort of ideological thinking or idealism around these ephemeral constraints on power or the separation of this and the third.
Or the social contract.
Exactly. If I can do it, I will do it. If I can, like the rule of what is right is might, as people say. If I can get away with it, then it's allowed.
Precisely.
And this is another example of that. National Bank or central banks around the world have come out in support of him, including the Bank of England chair, Andrew Bailey. But it just doesn't bear thinking about what would happen if that was like another place. Like, could you imagine Keir Starmer just trying to twist the screws on Andrew Bailey? And Andrew Bailey have to come out and just be like, I'm under pressure.
But it just shows you how far the Overton window shifted.
It's bonkers. And just that, like we say again, if we bring it back to like Adam Curtis, Mark Fisher, that hyper-normalization of things like last week you were like kidnapping Nicolas Maduro. This week, we've got like who should be one of the most powerful economists in your country looking like he just seen a ghost. Yeah. It's insane.
And it's obviously not financial advice, but don't do what Noah did and just liquidate your whole stocks just randomly.
But what did you say at the start though? The elders were right. Put the cash under the mattress.
Or put it into
Northstarpolitics.com/support. All right, let's get into our next story.
part 2 of the state of play. We needed a little break. Are we ready to get into it?
Yeah, ready.
Cool. So there is controversy between the UAE and the Muslim Brotherhood, which obviously is a long-standing feud, but the UK is somehow involved. So the UAE has excluded UK universities from its state-approved scholarship list, restricting funding and official recognition for Emiratis studying in the UK. So it's kind of framed like an academic quality reform, but the real reason, which has been leaked, is that there is fear of Islamist radicalization on UK campuses linked to the UK's refusal to ban the Muslim Brotherhood.
Big up Queen Mary.
Big up SOAS, big up Queen Mary. Yeah, the impact is that, new scholarship funding has stopped. Most UK degrees are no longer formally recognised by the UAE. And
That's mad.
I know, that is mad, given that the UK literally has the best institutions in the world for higher education. And the student numbers have basically just fallen like sharply. And it actually kind of like follows a sort of relationship that's frayed over the last years between the UK and the UAE. So there's like in 2023, they tried to purchase the Daily Telegraph. They failed. The UK has actually criticised the UAE for backing their role backing the role of the RSF in Sudan. And then you would know about this, the EPL cases against Manchester City over finances. So the reason like this is a very interesting story is obviously because they're buying into the right-wing fear around Islamist radicalisation on campuses. And they are also in a lot of ties and in bed with a lot of political figures. So there's some evidence that they're kind of supporting Nigel Farage behind the scenes. Yeah, I saw that
they were supporting a lot of sort of right-wing anti-Muslim movements around Europe.
Around Europe. And I kind of just want to break down why that is, because I think people will be saying like, so what, the UAE is like anti-Islamist, but I thought they were Islamists, I thought they were political Muslims. And there's a distinct difference. So the Muslim Brotherhood, do you know much about them?
Yeah, they're an old school name.
So you grew up with a couple of them in town?
Don't worry about it. Don't shout at the man, obviously shout at the man, but don't shout at the man.
So it's a transnational Islamist movement founded in Egypt back in the day. Sayyid Qutb is one of like the most famous kind of thinkers, and he's famous for a revolutionary political Islam. Okay, so he believes society is not governed by God. We're in the age of ignorance. Human secular law is illegitimate. It's a very angry and furious strain of Islamic thinking, because it's born out of the kind of fall of the Islamic world, colonialism, etc. And so he rejects like slow reform, and he actually says the use of violence is a structural necessity, and it's a very absolutist framework. And the reason that's important is because Hamas is a Palestinian offshoot of the Muslim Brotherhood, whereas the UAE differs a lot, because even though it is quite, I guess, superficially very strict in terms of like its Islam. So, for example, we remember the young kid who, and he's passed away now.
Rest in peace.
Yeah, rest in peace. About how obviously he had sex at 17 in Dubai, and they locked him up for a year. They still obviously emphasize like moral order and these sorts of things, but they're non-revolutionary. So their whole thing is like, no, you can't argue against the state. You can't argue against authoritarian powers. And it's very similar to Saudi in this way. And it's just bonkers though, that how like an institution, right? There's some sort of like cognitive
dissonance.
Yeah, cognitive dissonance, right? Between the fact that like a Muslim country could be funding what is hate movements against, or basically funding, I don't know, fabrication around what's really going on in the UK.
It's weird because obviously a lot of legacy media in the UK is seized on this to be like, wow, we have such a problem with radical Islam that even the UAE is like worried about Islamization in the UK. But in fact, it's like they're not worried about the Muslim part of it. They're worried about the revolutionary part.
Yeah, exactly.
Because obviously as a what's the word, a royal state and a state with authoritarian state, pardon me. They are a Muslim authoritarian state. They're not worried about the Muslim part of the Muslim Brotherhood. They're worried about the revolutionary part because they're trying to maintain their power base and their sort of principalities of the different emirates. Yeah,
and I think it's just important to kind of, I suppose, explore that kind of diversity within Islamic thought, because I think so often that we see like Islam and we just think it's all the same, and it's just fascinating to see how like actually, much of like these far right movements in Europe has been directly funded by people in the UAE.
I think as well, like, there's another example, and it comes down to like, a lot of the Russia stuff and even the US stuff.
Yeah.
As like, I don't think we realize or can even fathom how powerful states are and how much resources they have to be pumped into different projects they've just got going on.
Yeah, and
like,
it's all behind the scenes.
Yeah, exactly.
We never know about
like,
it.
We just happen to know about this one, but can you imagine the kind of stuff's going around the scenes where they just think this might pay off in 5 years in a marginal way, but they have such abundant resources they think it's a worthwhile endeavor.
Yeah.
Because even down to like the whole like the Saudi state basically buying Newcastle United, it's like, that's bonkers, as well as them flipping buying boxing, buying golf, buying all these sorts of things.
Yeah.
And that's just like a part-time sort of propaganda machine rather than their actual real domestic politics.
Yeah. And even on the table now, we have a book about revolution from a Marxist and a book about Sufis and Sharia. So I think we're probably on the watch list as well, to be honest.
Definitely. But you go to Dubai quite a lot, but I guess you can't go back.
Impossible. You can't pay me to go to Dubai.
I don't get the Dubai thing as well.
I think it's morally, look, as in my Muslim take is that they're not even real Muslims. I think they're morally vapid. And also they're just a shame on like the whole kind of Muslim community, to be honest.
Tarek, cut me out of that shot, innit? Like, I'm not trying to get head topped. No, but as in Dubai just seems like flipping Westfield with sand.
No, it is.
Is that, there's nothing that's appealed for me to want to go there.
No, neither. And also the kind of advocates for it.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
It's like Muslim Vegas. I wouldn't want to go Vegas. I'm not trying to go Dubai.
And actually, like one of the related stories that I wanted to, basically connect to this is obviously Palestine Action and the hunger strikers, because a lot of them actually probably inherit the kind of values of, I'm not saying they follow the Muslim Brotherhood or whatever, but actually like, that kind of revolutionary Islam is definitely imbued within their movement. And actually, Heba Meraisi is a hunger striker who's been on strike for more than 70 days, wow, which is mad. I think it's
more power to her.
But I think it's like one of the longest in history. And she can die at any minute. And this is just a reminder that she hasn't been convicted of a crime. She's been in prison without a trial for over a year, and the UK government is just ignoring her. But
she's been in prison without a trial for over a year because Palestine Action was prescribed as a terrorist organisation, so the powers came into play where she could be held in that way.
After the fact.
Exactly. Whereas if it was just registered as civil disobedience or damage of private property, then she wouldn't be able to be held this long without a trial.
And I kind of just wanted to read a little extract from some words from her, because I feel like we need to kind of humanise these hunger strikers and not just some silly kids who are just like causing a ruckus, but actually like they're thinking quite profoundly about these things. So it's just a quick paragraph, and she says, "And now from behind these steel walls and censors, I will continue the fight and resist. This is for the mothers who can't bury their children, for the fathers who had to bury all of theirs, for the children who have no family left and too young to understand why, and for my family, who I don't even know if they've made it out of Rafah. I will not compromise until all demands are met. Long live the Intifada." It's mad, man.
Real.
It's real.
I think it's important for people to think as well, like, as much as it is just like, you just see it as words on headlines, think to yourself, like, let me get in the mindset of someone who's taking it to such extremes for this cause. Why might they think that it's so important?
Definitely.
That's what like sort of real empathy is.
And I think like an underlying theme for this whole episode so far has been around protest, right? And actually, like, she has nothing left to protest with, right? Her voice is taken away, her freedom's taken away, and all she can literally do is starve herself. Like, people don't really get that internal logic, but I just think it's profound, right? That actually, like, she's being willing to put herself in harm's way for a movement that she thinks is greater than her own life. It's mad. So moving on to one of the idiots and the group of idiots who don't obviously respect any of this.
Bare idiots out here.
Bare idiots, too many.
Every day I step outside, it's bare idiots out here.
Reform. So, former Chancellor Nadeem Zahawi.
Sontaran. You know about that reference?
No, what?
All my people that watch Sarah Jane Adventures, you know about the Sontaran.
I don't even know about that.
When the Sontaran come around the corner, you got to get stepping. Dangerous.
Fair enough. So comment if you know what he's talking about. But former Chancellor Nadeem Zahawi has become the latest senior Conservative to defect to Reform UK. As Tories claim, actually, the reason he did that is because he was basically rejected for a peerage. So Zahawi, he was a former MP. He's actually founder of YouGov, so the polling company for people at home, has said that the UK has reached a dark and dangerous movement and the country needed a glorious revolution, as he outlined why he was joining Nigel Farage's party. Them man were having like a footballing conference, the way he announced it.
My boy said it's coming like Vince McMahon. Nigel Farage coming like Vince McMahon nowadays.
But yeah, apparently behind the scenes, the Conservatives are just saying he did it as a kind of snub to the Conservative Party.
Yeah.
Thoughts?
As in, did you see the tweets?
I actually didn't see.
So,
I famously didn't see the tweets because of our next topic. But carry on.
Oh yeah, it's true. I didn't see the tweets either. But Nadeem Zahawi was just flamesing up Nigel Farage back in the day, saying I would never serve in your government.
Well, of course.
But you know what these men are on, innit? It's just like just trying to get a crumb.
Yeah.
Trying to get a slice.
But also, like, okay, it's called Reform Party, so we're trying to reform the country because it's in a bad place.
Yeah.
Yet Nadeem Zahawi is one of the architects of the reason why it is in a bad place.
Yeah.
So what? He can just join the movement and just start to help reform it. It makes no sense.
Honestly, I just hope there's a wake-up call to some of these reform supporters who think that Nigel Farage is a man of people, or that he's like a people-powered movement for like the working class, anti-immigration people. Literally, there's an immigrant millionaire. So it's like I've got nothing against immigrants here. I actually got not that much against millionaires, but it's like, don't be thinking like that these people are on your side. These are just the same power-hungry politicians just trying to find the newest avenue back into power, or into power for the first time for Nigel Farage's case. I think it's shameless. But it's so well sort of facilitated by the British political system, because it's all about how much media time you can get.
Yeah.
Just like, if you're able to get the media time with it, then you'll get on whatever sort of team you want.
I don't know. I guess because look, a lot of people who even support reform aren't politically like that enthusiastic. So not like they're checking politics every single day, and they kind of just take in the lies that they might talk about. But I just don't know how this doesn't basically undermine any credibility or legitimacy reform has, by virtue of the fact that this guy literally is part of the institution, the historical party that has ruined the country.
You know what I'm starting to really fundamentally believe?
Go on then.
One, long-term prediction.
Okay.
Reform will form a minority government after the next election.
Okay, I'm there with you on that though.
And I think the reason why, I think a lot of pundits and commentators are saying that, but they're so hypocritical, they're so internally contradictory, why are they still progressing? Is because all they fundamentally appeal to is a protest vote.
Yeah.
So they actually don't have to have this multi-plural, like consistent sort of argument being put forward. So they can have these contradictory figures like Zia Yusuf and now Nadeem Zahawi and Layla Cunningham, all descendants of immigrants, being like some of their top leadership. Was Zia Yusuf left now? But you know what I mean?
Yeah.
All descendants
No,
of
I think he's still part of it.
Oh, but he's no longer, he left his role.
Yeah.
No longer, these people are all like descendants of immigrants and promoting this anti-immigrant stance. It doesn't actually matter the hypocrisy, because what people are kind of convinced of is these people are going to fuck shit up. We just need someone to just come in and smash some stuff. And I just want to feel something from politics. I want to feel like my vote matters in a sense it will actually do something.
F-bomb. Really?
Is it?
Your mom's watching though.
Let me just she's not watching this far.
And then moving on, and this story actually made me proud to feel British.
Yeah, is it?
Because Ofcom, my team Ofcom, is investigating Elon Musk and X over the Grok AI sexual deepfakes. The story is literally quite disgusting. So,
I haven't heard about that. Is it something you... What is
look
that?
at this guy.
What is it?
Just rewind back, where he was just like, "Oh, have you seen the tweets?"
My algorithm's different to yours, though.
So, Ofcom has launched a formal investigation into X, formerly known as Twitter, over reports that its AI tool Grok is being used to generate illegal sexual content, including non-consensual intimate images of women and sexualized images of children. Elon Musk, though, has actually pushed back, and even to some extent Nigel Farage, framing the probe as censorship. So while UK ministers and victims actually argue, like, can we just be normal people and just get rid of this, right? And actually, let's comply with the Online Safety Act, which the UK has to kind of protect British people from these things. They're still basically holding the fort that this is basically undermining free speech. And then some victims report hundreds of AI-generated sexual images have been made without consent. What in the degeneracy is going on?
Can I say something, yeah?
Go on.
If you, in your life, have ever gone onto Beyonce's internet and said, or at Grok,
Beyonce's internet,
what is this? At Grok, do this. At Grok, answer this. Brother, you're having a bubble. Like, what are you on? I couldn't give a lamb patty about Grok.
Nah.
Also, big up Ofcom.
Yeah, innit? That's why I'm proud to be British.
Old school name.
Yeah.
So I ain't watched like terrestrial TV. I ain't heard Ofcom in a minute. You know, back in the day, something used to happen on like I'm a Celeb.
Yeah,
when you're like 10 years old.
Of course.
Bare Ofcom complaints.
Yeah,
You hear
yeah.
about Ofcom. But I didn't know you were still about like that. You're still a big boy in ends. Okay.
But this is what I'm saying. I think, like, bro, what kind of like beliefs do people have to actually even try and remotely justify what is happening on this platform? I think it's disgusting. Land, go.
I'm going to say something, yeah.
What, Days of Kiyama?
Oh, we know that. We know that. I'm going to say something. So this ban on like the Grok AI sexual thing, right answer, wrong working out.
Okay.
I think it is an infringement on free speech. And I think it shouldn't be done for that reason. But I think what should have been pre-existingly done is a ban on children having access to sites where there's just such readily available pornographic imagery. So what my point is this, is if, you know, you have like someone who's really good at drawing or whatever, and they just got like a weird fetish, just a weirdo, and they want to like draw their favorite celeb naked, like we shouldn't be preventing them from doing that. They just want to, in their mind, draw their favorite celeb naked. They're not taking photos when they're in the shower, or whatever. They're just doing that. Okay, that should be allowed. I think the problem is we're producing sexual content that children are seeing all the time.
No, but the thing about AI is that obviously but you're talking about like a deeper kind of structural issue. We're talking about the fact that at the point of access, people could just generate naked images for children.
But they could.
So they should ban that.
But what I'm saying is people can generate those images anyway.
Like how?
They can do it themselves, just like take longer to do it, and just do it like old school digital without AI.
No, but you're talking, but like, he's even talking about hyper-normalization. We can't normalize this behavior.
No, but I'm more talking about like the theoretical principle. Because as much as I'm for it, like cool, I'm like, these man need to stop doing it. Like, as far as I'm concerned, all these man, you need to get like put on a register.
Yeah, of course.
But my thing is on like a pure like legal fundamental precedent being set.
Yeah,
I'm more evaluating that. I think the precedent being set is a bit concerning, but they have got to the right answer.
I don't think the precedent that's being set is concerning though, because ultimately, like, we don't live in an absolutist free speech world. So that we always, like, on a case by case basis, which is the nature of the British Constitution, even actually just regulate, you know, what we think is actually outside the realms of. You know what I mean?
Okay, so let me give you an example.
Because it's sexual as well. That's the key.
Yeah, that's cool. And obviously, like, sexual harassment is a crime.
Yeah.
But let's say as well, like, threats to incite violence is a crime.
Yeah.
And let's say someone goes on Grok AI and after Keir Starmer's done whatever nonsense he does next, says, oh, like Grok, portray this photo of Keir Starmer and in the House of Commons and put Guy Fawkes like lurking underneath him. Yeah. In the same way that like saying Grok undressed this person is now being likened to like reality of sexual harassment, is that not being could that not also along that same parallel be likened to a threat of inciting violence?
I don't think it's inciting violence though, because it's absurd. Whereas the reality of,
is that absurd? Because
of course it is absurd.
No, it's not, because I forget the name. And I actually met the woman a couple of times where she got in trouble with the police because she held up signs representing, I think it was
the coconut thing.
The coconut thing representing some of like sort of ethnic minority politicians as coconuts.
Suella Braverman and Rishi Sunak.
Suella Braverman and Rishi Sunak, and she got in big trouble with the police about that. Because it was sort of inciting racial hatred. Now, my point is, she was getting done that in real life. Now, if someone on Grok AI
but then she also beat the case, right?
But what I'm saying is, if now someone goes on Grok AI and does that, is that of the same parallel? In the same way that people aren't actually taking naked photos of someone. They're doing what they could have done with their hand, a pen and a pencil, or like Adobe Photoshop. They're creating this image themselves, but it's being likened to the actual reality of sexual harassment. And I worry about what might be downstream of that if we are then to liken, like, say, political activists critiquing politicians with AI.
No, but I don't think... I understand you're basically trying to draw out the consistency and the principle behind like the action of the banning, but I don't think like the kind of realm of, I guess, nudity, sexual violence, etc., can even be like compared to the caricaturing of like a politician. I just think there's separate. So I'm saying like
that's why I'm trying to find a parallel. Well, not a parallel, but like like an explicit crime. So obviously, like inciting violence is an explicit crime. But if we think about, I don't know, maybe now that we can't do the undress Grok AI thing, whatever. People are saying, okay, Rachel Reeves doesn't lower interest rates in the next. Well, it's not up to her, but like puts national insurance tax up in the next next budget. People say, oh, Grok, like show Tyson Fury punching this woman. So now is that a legitimate incitement of violence?
Well, it's that, but then I'm saying that debate is for like that realm of like, is that a legitimate sign of violence?
Is this precedent not being set that should be in the same way that this is being likened to reality of sexual harassment, even though it's literally just something people could do with their pen and paper?
No, but that's the thing. It's about the pervasiveness of it and the access to it.
How do you quantify it?
And the access to it. It doesn't matter how you quantify it. Like I said, it's case by case basis.
When you say access, people just do the same thing on Twitter.
Because I'm sure like, at the theoretical level, there might be some problems. Yeah, cool, fine. But at the kind of real level, like, cool, kids can go on this app and find these images. There's a problem.
No, that's my point.
Cut it out.
That's why I said right answer, wrong working out. I think kids should have been banned off this because there's just normal women.
Oh, but it's not about kids.
I've heard. I've heard that. It's mad.
But it's not about kids, bro. It's like even us, we're fully grown adults. We're
Yeah.
not fully grown.
Yeah.
Like, inshallah, we continue to grow.
I'm 6'3".
Okay, good for you, innit?
I'm fully grown.
And I'm taller than you. But anyways,
Impossible.
anyways, yeah. What I'm saying, is that we shouldn't even be able to access this. No adult should be able to access this. The social fabric's gone too far. Bro, of course not, fam. This is disgusting.
As in, I don't think no adult should be able to access it in the sense of like free will. But I agree, it's not good for you. But on a legal basis, children should not be able to access this.
And I just think we're a society run by degenerates.
I know, I agree. Kids should have been not been able to access this.
Yeah.
This is like the right answer, wrong working out.
Okay, so another thing related to Grok though, which is why it's actually getting even more scary, is that the US Department of War has also launched an AI acceleration strategy to make the US military an AI first fighting force. So rapidly integrating frontier AI access to warfighting, intelligence, operations, aggressive timelines and reduced bureaucracy, etc. So basically the US Defense Department is now going to integrate Elon Musk's Grok's artificial intelligence into Pentagon networks, including classified systems, which quite literally means AI agents now for the US Army trained by Grok, right, are going to be used for battle management, decision support, kill chain execution, intelligence to weapons pipelines, modern military workflows.
But none of these words are in the Quran.
Bro, no, well, one, that's true. But two, I'm saying it now, and I don't want to put you on the spot. Like, we tried a little thing with Northstar to put it on like X. Didn't really work because we're inconsistent. Yeah. But I think, bro, just delete it. I don't want to be associated with this platform at all.
I clock on my watch was buzzing. End of days. As in, I didn't even have to respond to that.
Bro, as in, I mean, there have been great campaigns, like, there's great campaigns against autonomous weapons being used in the military. But guys, what this literally means is you tweeting, you liking, you retweeting, you basically even not using Grok. If you do that, just chill out, don't do that.
Or bet or a loss.
Is literally training this model that is going to help the US do their nonsense across the world.
We've spoken before about structural injustice, yeah?
Of course.
And a big, important part of structural injustice to understand that everyone in their individual sort of silo is doing what they perceive as the right thing, but en masse, there seems to be a lot of harm being perpetuated. And as we see the development of autonomous and AI-driven weaponry, what you're going to see is the further obfuscation of accountability, such that you're going to see crazy harm done. Because and it's like the networks that are like causing that to happen or manifesting that are so obscure and intangible that the algorithms, the accountability matrix is so obscure that we're not going to be able to prevent this.
And that's the problem of modern comfort, because like someone just scrolling on their app, think it's just so harmless what they're doing, and actually like, oh, they asked Grok a question, oh, they asked Grok to generate a picture, and it's funny, but like you're helping train the AI that's going to be used to do human tracking.
In that way, the accountability becomes diffuse against everyone using X.
Exactly.
And in the same way, then the people who are actually developing that structure no longer feel the accountability themselves.
So this is a real Northstar call to action, yeah? Can't lie, everyone, get off this app, get off Grok, don't use it. Yeah. And at the end of the day, there's no such thing as,
free lunch.
Free lunch, exactly.
Yeah, no such thing as free lunch.
As in, like, you're going to pay with something, and you're paying with your attention, you're paying with your data.
You're paying what your data is going to be used for in the end.
Exactly. And what it's going to be used for is literally genuine evil. And that is not an exaggeration. That is quite literally the reality, because even for a lot of kids in Gaza, there's a lot of evidence that AI autonomous weapons have been used and have been trained on kids in Gaza. Yeah. It's horrible.
I mean, definitely in Ukraine.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. But that concludes the state of play. A heavy topic to end on, but there was a lot, so we need to get through it.
A lot. I feel like we covered way too much there. But hopefully, like just the weather cools down and the world just keeps it nice and chill this week. We come back next week with just Let Me Lands, echo chambers.
I mean, you had your Let Me Land today, though. Like, you just want to allow Grok to just free up.
Yeah, but it's like, how else are you going to spend your time if, you know what I mean? Like, I know that you spend a lot of time on that app, so I don't know what you're up to on there.
Astaghfirullah.
All right, let's wrap it up there and get into some closing remarks, yeah?
Let's do it. First main episode, 2026. How was that? Long? Packed?
Why are you giving teasers saying main episode? What do you mean by that?
You let me know what I mean by that in the comments.
Stars, if you made it this far, just know we've got something for you at the end of this week.
Yeah, we're trying a thing, as always, and we're trying to push the levels of Northstar, so who knows, maybe you're going to see an extra show pop up on your timeline very soon. Now and
then, but just lock in on all channels so you don't miss a thing. Northstar Politics on Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, not X. You can't undress the man them on Grok AI.
Not X. But what, you got a little recommendation?
Recommendation for the people them. Over the Christmas period, I went to the Young Vic, which is a theatre in South London, to see Bengal tiger in a Baghdad zoo. It was good, you know. It reminded me a bit of Kurt Vonnegut, Slaughterhouse 5. It was good. It wasn't what I expected, and I like that. It was quite existential.
Nice.
Yeah. Yourself?
To be honest, I've just been so insular, just trying to get into my own routine.
Winter arc, yeah?
Yeah, something like
Signal
that,
now.
man. Something like that. Just wake up early in the morning, and like my auntie was saying, make up your bed. That's my recommendation.
Come on.
We do actually want to give a bit of a call out because, again, we want to grow. We don't necessarily have all the capital to grow right now, but that is definitely what we're going to be pursuing. So, again, we've already called out for like support us at northstar.com/support. If you're interested in sponsoring, reach out to us. If it makes sense, it makes sense. But also, if you're interested in kind of joining the team, maybe reach out. Let us know what skills you have. I mean, so many people have in the past, and they sound a bit too talented for us right now.
Yeah.
The things that we actually really need right now is literally a clipper, which sounds so mad, but for growth.
It would change our life.
And actually, like, honestly, like that it would be the most useful thing to us right now. But if you actually have any ideas as well, right, about collaboration or what you think we can do, let us know.
Also, I got to shout out some of the people where I've been seeing them tag us on just like random parts of social media, like recommending us.
Yeah.
People have been putting out call outs to like who are like voice messages to shout outs. We appreciate it more than you know. We see everything.
Yeah, definitely.
So we appreciate you guys.
Thanks so much.
I'm so glad to be back, bro. It's been a lovely episode.
It has. And inshallah, we're back next week and the week after, if Tariq permits.
If our producer permits. But no, stars them. Stay safe this week and we'll see you next week.
Take it easy.